Welcome to The Explainer. Listen, today we're stepping into a story of just uncompromising persistence. I want you to clear your mind for a second. We're going to embark on this incredible cinematic journey through the life of a guy who looked at literally impossible odds and just refused to blink, right? This isn't just your standard biography of Elon Musk. It's really a deep dive into human endurance. It shows us exactly what happens when you push all your chips to the center of the table.
He was broke, rejected. Before all the global recognition, long before the immense wealth we see today, he was standing on the absolute edge of losing everything. Think about the brutal economic climate of the late 2000s. Doors were literally slammed in his face. His bank accounts were draining so incredibly fast. And this desperation wasn't just some abstract concept, it was a daily, suffocating reality. He was out of cash, out of favor, and it seemed like he was totally out of time. Every single indicator pointed to just total, irreversible ruin.
So it led to this literal, high-stakes ultimatum: pay rent or build a dream. Ask yourself right now, what would you do if your actual survival was on the line and you had to choose between personal comfort and this crazy idea that only you could see? Would you retreat to safety? Would you just pack it all in and look for a regular 9-to-5? Because this was the genuine reality of a man who looked at his empty wallet, looked up at the sky, and just absolutely refused to quit.
Part 1. The vision and the risk. Look, most people seek stability, right? They belong to the comfortable majority. We all kind of want that predictable path, a steady paycheck, a quiet life. But he wasn't born into this sweeping success, and nobody handed him an empire. Instead, he was this obsessive visionary. While everyone else was getting comfortable with exactly how the world worked, he was completely consumed by this intense need to build the future. I'm talking obsessing over multi-planetary life and sustainable energy during an era when those ideas sounded completely absurd to basically everyone. He saw a trajectory for humanity that literally no one else was even looking at.
Part 2. Failure after failure.
And let me tell you, success did not come fast. In those early days, his ideas weren't just ignored, they were actively questioned and ridiculed by the absolute smartest people in the aerospace and automotive industries. But instead of backing down, he took massive risks. He poured his own millions, literally the entire fortune he'd made from previous ventures like PayPal, into new, totally untested rockets and car manufacturing plants, which, as you might guess, inevitably led to the verge of total collapse. Industry experts were criticizing him openly on national television. Early prototypes failed, and most devastatingly, his rockets were exploding right there on the launch pad. These companies were bleeding millions of dollars every single month.
And yet, he kept going. Despite the overwhelming doubt, despite the actual physics and math telling him to stop, despite the entire world screaming at him to just be reasonable and cut his losses, he put his head down and he took another step forward. The sheer persistence required to weather that specific storm, when the media, the public, and the financial markets are all betting against you, is just absolutely staggering.
Part 3. The breaking point.
$0. Wow. I really want you to try and imagine being this close to losing it all. In the dark, super unforgiving days of 2008, right alongside a global financial crisis, his companies were failing simultaneously. The payroll for his dedicated employees was looming, and the bank accounts? Totally empty. 3 consecutive Falcon 1 rockets had exploded, just wiping out years of work and millions of dollars in a matter of seconds. Plus, the electric cars were suffering severe, seemingly unsolvable production delays. Can you even imagine the physiological toll? Knowing hundreds of people are relying on you to feed their families and realizing you have absolutely nothing left to give them?
There was zero safety net here. One wrong move, just one more failed launch, and it was completely over. The gravity of that situation must have been crushing. If he made a single mistake in his calculations, or if he failed to secure some last-minute miracle loan, the dream of revolutionizing space and transport was dead forever. History literally hung by a thread. The margin for error was mathematically zero.
Part 4. The turning point. So, this moment brilliantly illustrates why he is who he is. Most people would quit, and honestly, who could blame them? Quitting makes absolute, logical, mathematical sense when your bank balance is at zero and your rockets are literally in pieces. But he doubled down. When the chips were completely down, he didn't fold. He pushed his last remaining funds right to the center of the table. He deliberately split his remaining money to keep both Tesla and SpaceX alive, just flat out refusing to let either dream die. He worked hours that simply defy human biology, sleeping on factory floors. He willed his way out of that abyss through sheer, unadulterated force of character.
Part 5. Building the future.
And slowly, the darkness actually started to break. It began by simply facing the impossible, just standing firm in that storm without breaking. And that endurance bought them just enough time for relentless innovation. They were working day and night to solve complex engineering problems that legacy aerospace and automotive experts explicitly said could not be solved. And then, beautifully, the impossible started becoming reality. That fourth rocket, against all odds, finally reached orbit. The production lines for the cars finally hummed to life. The math, after years of brutal punishment, finally added up.
Now, these weren't just business wins, they were monumental achievements for humanity. He was mainstreaming electric cars when the world thought they were basically glorified golf carts. He was revolutionizing space exploration with reusable rockets, dropping the cost of leaving Earth by incredible orders of magnitude. He wasn't just building some software app to flip it for a quick, comfortable profit. No, he was fundamentally altering the trajectory of the human species, dragging these stagnant, century-old industries kicking and screaming into the future. He forced the rest of the world to finally catch up to his imagination.
And then came the ultimate vindication. The doubters started watching. The exact same experts, those critics and skeptics he literally laughed at his initial timelines, the ones who called him foolish on national television just a few years prior, they were now absolutely glued to their screens. They watched in stunned silence as massive orbital-class dual rocket boosters landed backward on automated drone ships in perfect synchronization. They watched as his electric cars dominated global sales charts, outperforming legacy automakers. His phenomenal rise became a completely undeniable reality.
Part 6. The ultimate lesson.
It's incredibly easy to look at the end result, the massive companies, the historic wealth, and miss the point entirely. The true lesson of this explainer, the real takeaway here, is not about the money. It's not about becoming a billionaire or seeing your name in the headlines. It is entirely about mindset. World-changing success does not come from a place of comfort or safety. It comes from an ironclad mental fortitude that simply refuses to break, even when the weight of the entire world feels like it's resting on your shoulders.
There are these harsh, totally unavoidable foundations to any massive achievement in life. Risk? That's simply the cost of entry. If you risk nothing, you gain nothing. Failure isn't the end of the road, guys. It is simply the raw, unpolished data you collect along the way to refine your approach. And persistence is the engine that drives you through the storm when that data looks incredibly bleak. Because if you quit early, you don't just lose, you completely blind yourself to what was actually possible on the other side of that pain.
I want to speak directly to anyone checking out this explainer right now who might be feeling the intense weight of their own life. Maybe you feel completely stuck in your current situation. You might feel lost, out of viable options, or like you're falling dangerously behind everyone else around you. Let me tell you, that suffocating pressure you feel, that creeping doubt keeping you awake at night, it is entirely normal. It's actually part of the process. I really want you to burn this reality into your memory. Every successful person you admire was once exactly where you are right now. They all had their $0 moment. They all faced the abyss, looking down into the dark, wondering if they just made a colossal, life-ruining mistake. The absolute only difference, the singular defining trait between them and the millions of people who just fade away into history, is that they didn't stop. They kept walking through the dark.
So if the audacity of this journey inspired you, please don't just scroll away. Take that feeling and channel it. Subscribe to GSK Daily Motivation, because the next explainer we dive into might just give you the exact blueprint you need to change your trajectory. But before you go, I want you to sit in silence for a second and ask yourself this one final, provocative question. If you lost absolutely everything tomorrow, what is the one dream you would still refuse to quit on? Think about it. We'll see you next time.